Hello eco-conscious viewers, and welcome to today's Planet Earth, our loving home. The United Nations has declared 2010 the International Year of Biodiversity, and on today's programme we'll explore the impact of livestock raising on the planet's flora and fauna. Earth is home to countless species, which all cooperate with one another to maintain the health of the biosphere. We human beings are also part of the global ecosystem, and our lives and survival are closely related to those of other species.
We human beings are living things. We came to existence and evolved in living systems as part of ecological systems. Every time we reduce the amount of biodiversity, we basically impoverish our own future.
Dr. Thomas Lovejoy of the United States has enjoyed a long and distinguished career, having served as the Chief Biodiversity Advisor to the World Bank, the Executive Vice President of the World Wildlife Fund US, and as the Senior Advisor to the President of the United Nations Foundation. Currently, he serves as the Heinz Center Biodiversity Chair. The center is a prestigious environmental policy institute in the USA. Dr. Lovejoy created the idea of debt for nature swaps between nations.
The idea of debt for nature swaps is to actually turn the idea of debt around and say, is there a way that forgiving debt can actually make conservation and better environmental management take place? And it's basically a matter of forgiving debt in one currency in return for the country in question devoting its own currency for conservation and environmental projects. And nobody knows how much of it's been done because there's no central register, but clearly at least a few $1 billion worth have taken place and invested in conservation literally all around the world.
As part of his important work, Dr. Lovejoy is sounding the alarm that global biodiversity is facing unprecedented threats.
We are falling behind the challenge. If 30% of all amphibians are endangered, 10% of all bird species are endangered, that means we're falling behind.
At present, the number of species in most of the world's ecosystems is declining, while the function of nearly all these systems is also shrinking. United Nations scientists estimate that globally, species are disappearing at an unprecedented rate of 50 to 1,000 times faster than the background rate, or the rate of extinction before humans became the primary cause of extinctions, based on fossil records. According to the latest International Union for the Conservation of Nature's, or IUCN's, Red List of Threatened Species, 17,291 species out of the 47,677 species assessed are threatened with extinction. It was found that 21% of all known mammals, 30% of all known amphibians, 12% of all known birds, and 28% of reptiles, 37% of freshwater fishes, 70% of plants, and 35% of invertebrates assessed thus far are in danger of disappearing. Jane Smart, director of the group's research team, warned that scientific evidence of a serious extinction crisis is mounting. The growing rate of global species loss is closely related to the rapid growth of the livestock industry in recent decades. Many scientific studies have shown the devastating impact the livestock sector has on biodiversity. For example, the 2006 report by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, entitled Livestock's Long Shadow, points out that the livestock industry is one of the leading causes of falling biodiversity levels. The report states that the livestock industry plays a major role in almost all the serious environmental issues on the planet, including deforestation, land degradation, pollution, climate change, sedimentation of coastal areas, and water shortages, all of which have a severely negative impact on global biodiversity. In addition, the livestock sector is a major driver of overfishing and a facilitator of non-native species changing ecological systems in detrimental ways. According to a 2005 study on terrestrial ecoregions by the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, some 306 of the Earth's 825 known regions are facing threats from livestock production. Another analysis of the 35 global hotspots for biodiversity done by Conservation International reveals that 23 are now seriously affected by livestock production. Scientists have found that livestock raising leads to a decrease in the abundance of species in areas where it is practiced. For example, Australian researchers discovered that in arid rangeland zones of South Australia, the numbers of most species in paddocks are lower than in areas that have never been used to raise animals. Due to livestock production, most of the original vegetation in the region's paddocks has been destroyed and replaced by a grazing lawn. In addition, the native animals have lost their familiar habitats to these large empty spaces. Per livestock's long shadow, over 1/4 of the planet's ice-free terrestrial surface has been or is used for livestock grazing, and when the space taken by crop cultivation for animal feed is accounted for, nearly 1/3 of Earth's total land is used in some way for livestock production. Scientists estimate that 1 in 10 known species lives in the Amazon rainforest, and this region has the greatest amount of biodiversity on the planet. Approximately 80% of the Amazon rainforest that has been felled thus far has been due to livestock production activities. A 2009 report by the United Nations Environmental Programme, or UNEP, states that 26 species of plants and animals in the Amazon region have gone extinct due to deforestation, while another 644 kinds of flora and fauna, including the red-faced spider monkey, the spectacled bear and the otter, are on the brink of extinction. In reality, the actual number of flora and fauna that have already disappeared is far higher, because some species likely became extinct before scientists had a chance to learn of their existence. When we return, we'll continue our discussion of the livestock industry's serious effects on global biodiversity. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television.
The impacts of deforestation include some short-term benefits for a small number of people, and then it involves health problems and essentially environmental destruction and impoverishment for many, many more people.
Welcome back to Planet Earth, our loving home. As declared by the United Nations, 2010 is the International Year of Biodiversity, and today we are focusing on the enormously damaging consequences of livestock production on the planet's flora and fauna. As more than 1/4 of the planet's ice-free terrestrial surface is being used for grazing, scientists have found that the destructive impact of livestock raising on the ecosystems of these areas is staggering, with substantial land degradation being a direct result of the intensive animal agriculture practices. Aside from deforestation and land degradation, climate change is another extremely serious threat to global biodiversity, with its destructive effects on plants and animals becoming increasingly apparent.
Plant and animal life is responding and changing and moving all over the world. Ecosystems are beginning to fail in certain places like tropical coral reefs or the coniferous forests of North America. So, in the end, the natural world is more sensitive to climate change than anything else on the agenda.
In their recently published paper Livestock and Climate Change in World Watch magazine, former and current World Bank environmental experts Dr. Robert Goodland and Jeff Anhang conclude that more than 51% of human-caused global greenhouse gas emissions come from the livestock industry. These experts also point out that factory farming puts out enormous amounts of methane, accounting for more than 37% of all anthropogenic sources. This toxic gas has 72 times the global warming potential of carbon dioxide over a 20-year period. Global warming is accelerating the extinction rate of flora and fauna across the world. Without a wide array of plants and animals on Earth, humankind's survival is in serious doubt.
And we need to really think about ecosystems and biodiversity across the face of the planet. And we also need to think about maintaining representative natural areas that are of sufficient size that they continue to be representative. That was the idea of the minimum critical size of ecosystems, and how big should a park be in order to really be representative. If we fail to do this, it's a pretty unattractive future, not only for the rest of life, but for human beings.
As individuals, we have many effective ways to protect biodiversity and help save our planet.
I think probably the most important thing would be to make it possible for most people to realize the wonders and beauties of nature, the essential role nature plays in support of human society. The individual plays a really important role in the future of life on Earth. It's part of our daily actions. It's part of how we act politically, how we vote, who we choose to be our leaders. We need to change how we think about living on this planet. We have to move from thinking about nature as something which occurs in some isolated, fenced-off reserve here and there in the countryside, to thinking of ourselves as living within a natural matrix. It's basically changing our attitude about how we relate to nature, and it's also changing our just daily awareness of it.
The fastest and most effective way to eliminate the destructive effects of livestock production on biodiversity and to mitigate climate change is following the organic vegan diet. If all of humanity quickly adopts an animal-free lifestyle, we can ensure a healthy, beautiful planet for all life on Earth for generations to come. We conclude today's program with Dr. Lovejoy's beautiful vision for the future.
I'd like to share a dream, and the dream is that we actually think on a planetary scale of restoring a lot of the ecosystems that have been degraded and destroyed. That would be reforestation in places like the southern Amazon, restoring degraded grazing lands in places like Australia, practicing agriculture in ways that puts carbon back in the soil, and literally makes the planet greener than it is today. That would achieve two things. It would literally remove a significant fraction of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and thereby eliminate some of the climate change that we're facing. But it would also make all those ecosystems better able to withstand climate change and deliver all the other ecosystem service benefits that we get from ecosystems, whether it's watersheds or the increase of knowledge of essentially the life sciences, which are so important to us.
we'd like to thank Dr. Thomas Lovejoy for sharing his perspectives on biodiversity and environmental conservation, and for his many years of leadership in this field. We wish him the very best in his future endeavours. For more information regarding Dr. Thomas Lovejoy, please visit www.heinzctr.org. Thank you for your kind company on today's programme. Up next is enlightening entertainment after noteworthy news. May we all adopt sustainable and compassionate lifestyles to save the planet.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/PE